Hello, I'm Bev Lewis, and these are the questions for this week. What can we learn from Leopold's land ethic and related concepts as it relates to sustainability and environmental justice? Aldo Leopold's writing in Sand County Almanac offers several significant insights regarding environmental justice and sustainable practices. First of all, his observations in nature provide practical insight. For example, in his writing called Thinking Like a Mountain, he demonstrates the importance of understanding the interrelationship of living things within a natural environment so that balance is maintained within that system. He uses the example of how killing predators permits overpopulation of deer, which in turn eat more than the system can replenish, so that eventually the land is decimated and the deer will starve. I think that this is a principle that lies at the heart of practically every issue involving environmental justice and the development of sustainable solutions. We have historically not approached construction in a way that looks at the big picture or the long term. So Leopold suggests that maybe we need to redefine what economy means in terms of environmental justice. As it is, current industrial practices consider economical means that offer immediate results, and these best methods are the ones that create the greatest quantity, the fastest, and deliver it to the greatest number of people with the least amount of effort. And time and again, this definition of economical results in loss of production as the resources are quickly used up, whether it's because we cut down all the trees, or we left too much toxic waste in the ground and we got to pack up and go, or we've stripped all the nutrients from the soil and we can't plant there again, ever. So, just as killing all the wolves will eventually cause all the deer to starve to death, it's much more reasonable to define economic expedience in terms of practices that are designed to sustain the resources that we constantly use. Otherwise, they run out and we end up like the deer. Leopold says it this way: a thing is right when it tends to preserve the integrity, stability, and beauty of the biotic community. It's wrong when it tends otherwise. And that's a pretty simple ethical measurement. And it leads into the next question on this week's agenda. Why is being less bad no good? And that title of the reading, that it gives us an overview of worldwide efforts that businesses and industry have taken in the last 20 years or so to reduce the damages that their respective manufacturing methods produce. And this reading goes on to describe in detail in the ineffectiveness and inefficiency of some of these methods, including various recycling practices. So, the question is, why is being less bad no good? And simply, if reducing environmental destruction is the only intervention that ever gets implemented, then all that can possibly be hoped to achieve is a prolonged problem. And maybe things are going to get better for a little while, or for the people around in the immediate, but over time it's just not going to be enough. In other words, less bad does not create a sustainable system. It just makes the unsustainable one last longer. It seems to me that interventions that are designed to reduce the problems should not be the final goal, but instead an intermediary step in the process. And the goal is to replace the ineffective systems with ecologically sustainable ones, and to do it over time so that the entire process is not disrupted. At least ultimately, that seems like a good idea. There are a couple of other points that are in this reading that tie into the next question that's posed to Group 3 on the Agyeman text. And this question is, what can the San Francisco plan teach us about sustainability and environmental justice at the municipal level? Now, in the reading, why being bad is no good, a concept is introduced that of Jane Jacobs, and I think it makes sense when you look at it in terms of how there is a disconnect between creating policy and then implementing it. Jacobs' concept describes two factors that often have conflicting interests. She calls these factors the guardian, which is the government, and commerce, which is generally private industry. Now, what happens between these two factors basically makes it difficult for either one to be effective, and I think that something like this is what happened with the San Francisco plan. In an overview, what happened was there was a group of people and they got together and developed a set of universal goals which would serve as the policy for structuring and implementing plans of action to achieve goals within their community, and the goal for sustainability. And they were really good goals. The plan ended up becoming adopted as public policy, and I'm sure that was quite a coup for this group. However, here is where we see an example of how policy, or regulation, if you will, really has to be accompanied by a viable action plan that's ready for implementation and specific to the advancement of the goals that are to become policy. Action is where policy breaks down. No matter how good the policy might seem to be, this is what the article says about it. Although Sustainable San Francisco, a non-profit organization, was successful in getting the city to officially adopt the plan it developed, since its adoption in 1997, it's difficult to find where in the operation of the city's governmental agencies that these goals are being vigorously pursued. So you can see, with the example of the San Francisco plan, that policy actually can be changed through the efforts of private citizens, but in order for policy to affect real change, well-developed action plans designed to forward the mission of the policy should be initiated immediately. What happened with the San Francisco plan suggests that maybe the kind of action needed for follow-through might be something that's more effectively initiated by private citizens. At least in this case, it's clear that the governmental agencies were not equipped or not inclined to sufficiently follow through with whatever it is they did, so that the goals set forth by the San Francisco plan resulted in measurable change. So the last question for this week, what do Malthus and Ehrlich warn us about? And both of these guys, although 200 years apart, said the same thing. They put it out there how dangerous overpopulation can be to our world, to our civilization, and they spelled it out in no uncertain terms how ugly that would be, and how it would end up being our eventual downfall. This warning comes into everything we've been reading about so far, and it compounds the problems that we face in creating sustainable solutions. And as we attempt to redesign mechanisms that we use for food or shelter, it's the fear of scarcity that comes directly out of overpopulation that becomes the prevailing theme in local, national, and international communities. Although it's a thread, it's an unspoken one, and yet it is at the root of overconsumption and depletion of resources. So, thank you.